understand like why. Like what is missing?
I don't have any answers.
You don't have any reasons.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know this beat, it's your girl Kalybriah coming at you with a new video. So today we're going to be talking about Love is Blind Season 9, episodes 10 and 11. So let's get right into the video because this season is just like, what's going on? What is going on? So we had 6 engaged couples at the start of the season, and now we're down to 3 in these past 2 episodes. It was just like, yeah, it's like, let's wrap it up. Episode 10, episode starts out with Annie and Nick talking. So basically, this is basically after all the couples went to the Western situation, meet up, everybody from the pods meet up essentially. So Annie's just basically talking to Nick, asking him, was his chat with Kate, He's like, it's pretty good. You know, she took it pretty well. He apologized for, the breakup, whatever. Anyways, then I guess Annie had a lot to drink because, she was just, basically asking him questions, basically saying like, oh, he doesn't, show her that she loves her, he doesn't reciprocate. Like basically everything I said in my last video is basically she wants Nick to love her like she wants him, and just it's very giving on to begging, going in circles like, okay, oh, they both saying that they love each other, and then she's like, oh, I don't think you love me as much as I love you, and Nick is just like, how can you say that? He's also saying I took time out of my work to try to help you with your setup of your salon, he's basically showing you his actions are speaking he's actually putting time and effort into working, and it's just you're going back in circles. And the thing is, he did say is okay, when we come back from Mexico, if we have another situation like this where you're going around in circles, basically having an argument over nothing essentially, and you start to put words in his mouth, he's kind of yeah, I'm over it. So that's what he told her when they came back. Now he's trying to eat his burrito, whatever. They're going around in circles about, oh, if he loves her enough as she loves him, and he's just what more? He's what more do you want from me? After that, they have another chat, and I guess she's sober up, she's sober, everything. He basically tells her yeah, I don't think this is gonna work. He's still trying to be cordial, he still have patience with her, but after what happened the night before, she's sober up, he has a chat with her, basically says yeah, this is not gonna work. Yeah, you can't force me to marry you. She was literally begging him to fight and try, but I'm he did try and he did put effort in. It's just when you start to self-sabotage the whole relationship, and what do you want him to do? And basically say he's if you don't feel I love you as much as, or love you enough or whatever, then that's concerning, because it was 10 days until the wedding. So I'm just if you still feel he doesn't love you as much as you love him, then that's concerning. And he was right to say that, because it's just if you still feel some type of way that this is happening, and you're trying to basically force him and say oh,
the wedding is not something that I want to do.
I don't need you to tell me no right now.
I know you don't want to.
Just how I don't need you to tell me yes right now.
I can't go on any longer.
So he tried to end it. Basically, she was on her phone at this time, so she was in the conversation, trying to text somebody. And I think she knows where the conversation was leading to, because she said, oh, I'm 90% sure that this wedding is not happening. Anyways, basically Nick, he said no. He left. So by this time, this is where they're having the suit fitting and the dress fittings, whatever. So Nick and Annie are done, they're over, whatever. She's upset because she didn't feel he fought for anything, but I'm he did try and he did put effort in. So then you have Allie basically saying at the fitting oh, does getting down on one knee doesn't mean anything to you. But I'm just if they watch this back and see how Annie was acting, they probably would feel okay, yeah, Nick had a reason to leave the relationship. I don't know what's their beef with Nick, because just like he can't do something without them judging it, because I'm just like, you know, I guess Allie, Madison, Joe, they're definitely not Team Nick at all, because they're just on him at all times, which is like, okay. But one relationship bites the dust. Annie, I don't know what she was going through, but you know, she was begging, like, okay, like, get up. But she really self-sabotaged the relationship. She even had a chat with the girls about that in Mexico, saying like, you know, she feels like she's gonna ruin it, and she did. She ruined it, because they were working, everybody was like going good, and then she started to like do some self-sabotage, which is like, it gets to a point, and his point was, in another situation like this, it was wraps, and he meant that. He didn't give it a second chance. He was like, it's wraps. Like, yeah, after sleep on this, it was like, no. So then we get to Joe and Madison. Joe, he actually meets Madison's family, and basically, you know, he talks about how, you know, he dated somebody for 5 years. They got, you know, he got engaged to, almost had a wedding, but like he basically backed out of the whole situation when they were writing their invitations. So basically talks about that. The mom and sister basically, you know, feels the vibe, like he says like, oh, Joe's the right one for Madison. Like, you don't know, they went through like maybe 3-4 fights before these meetups, but that they had to meet up and whatever. Get to the dress and, you know, suit fitting. Joe, he's with his friends, whatever, he's trying on suits. Joe, he tried on suits, and he just starts to, like, I guess, break down, have a mental breakdown. Basically, he runs out of the fitting, goes to his truck, basically said, like, he literally leaves, like, he couldn't do this anymore. Madison over here trying on dresses like everything's sweet. Joe leaves. He leaves the fitting, and which is basically wraps. So before we even come back to episode 11 now, episode 11, basically, it was over with the relationship. You know, they're packing up, essentially. I know it's just like, okay, Madison trying to ask Joe, like, okay, give me a reason why you don't really want to do this anymore. Because he's basically saying, like, yeah, he just can't do this. He liked it. Like, Madison's not his person.
It's just not right. It's not right. I could feel it.
I just want to know why it's wrong. Because that's where you're not giving me any clarity on that.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, once again, another relationship out the door, wraps, and another engagement failed. I feel like in the sense with Annie and Nick probably was just like, he needed probably a little bit more time, because he really said, like, in Nick's defense, he was saying, like, you know, he just can't think about marriage right now in this sense, especially with like 10 days to the wedding. But he was probably like maybe giving her a chance to like maybe date on the outside. But in Joe's case, Joe is like, yeah, you're not my person. He said that he probably would have been miserable if he got married and have kids with her, and basically said he felt relief when they ended the situation. Madison over here boohoo crying, because she's just like, I don't understand what happened. Like, what happened? Give me a reason. What's going on? But I'm just feeling like maybe what happened in Mexico, plus what happened when they got back to Denver, especially after their argument. Or she took off the ring, and just like, her taking off the ring again is just like, okay, you already took off the ring before, so I'm just like, you taking off the ring after he ended the situation, it doesn't make a big difference, because it's just like, you took it off before and put it in the box. Did you not? But yeah, the relationship is over with. So 2 relationships done. So now just 3 couples left that are engaged, and Kalybriah and Edmund are hanging on by literally a thread. They are hanging on by a thread, which is crazy. So episode 10, like I said, I was Team Kalybriah when that situation happened at the Western situation. So Kalybriah, they're in the apartment. Kalybriah's like, do I have to be the one to, always address the elephant in the room? So she was like, you know what? I have my story, you have your story. So he was like, oh, he tried to play it off like, oh, it was just as a joke. Annie saying that Nick was perfect. It was just like, oh, just be nice, as a joke. He's trying to play it off as a joke. Kalybriah said, no. Before we even get to the whole Western situation, she had a lot of things leading up to it. And she was just like, you know what? We're missing, belt pieces to go with the whole cowboy look. So she was like, okay, well, since Edmund, you know, he has time, he's available. She calls him up, asks him, like, hey, can you run to the store and grab me some, you know, grab some stuff for our outfits so we can show up to this event? So he said no. He literally said no, got his hair cut, and that was it. So she was running errands all day, all that. She didn't even have time to eat. She didn't have to do her makeup, da-da-da-da. She had a lot of things to do before she even get to the event. She asked him for, you know, help to go to the store for her and for them, basically, and he didn't do that. He just said, oh, he's gonna get his little haircut. I don't know what type of haircut he got, but maybe a shape up, but that was it. Anyways, so she was like, yeah, she was kind of heated with him because it's like she asked for help in her time of distress, and you literally told her no. And you had the means to do so because it was just down the road. She still ended up doing what they were supposed to do, but she was kind of annoyed with him. Obviously, I guess it kind of like resolved itself or whatever, because like when they showed up to the event, she was still cool with him, walked in hand whatever. He then later says that says like, oh, and nice to hear someone said something like that to him, or nice to hear nice things. She hears that, and she literally says, like, when he said that, everybody who was around them started looking at KB. They started looking at Kalybriah like, oh snap. Al even, like, her face dropped because it was like he really just said that in front of everybody.
And literally, I felt multiple eyes on me because when I looked up, they looked at me and then they tried to. Allie's mouth dropped due to the comment alone. Then you go, you put your drink down and you look and you say, well, you know what though? You haven't said nothing nice to me all day.
So she was like, I mean, obviously, like, if they had beef before the show, and not before the show, before they even got to the event, and obviously resolved itself, and they're like on cool ground, and you started up again, try to embarrass her in front of a bunch of people that don't even know their business like that, that's where she gets heated, because it's just like, now you're trying to embarrass her and bring their, I guess, dirty laundry to the forefront for what? Like, that was not needed. Like, now people are going to be thinking like, oh, I don't say nice things about you, da-da-da-da. So he tried to dismiss her feelings at the place, and we obviously see, he does all of that. She goes to the bathroom, she's crying, she comes back, she's like, I don't really want to speak to you anymore. And it was just like, yeah, it's raps. Like, she probably was like yelling at him and they probably heard it, whatever. But like, she was just like, yeah, no, like, after you try to play in my face, no, I don't want to speak to you for the rest of the night. So she's trying to tell him like, okay, you dismissed my feelings. You said that, brought that to, in front of everybody, and like, you never apologized for it or took accountability. So she like gives you context and background, and I think a lot of people who probably weren't on Kalybriah's side probably now realize, oh, like, there's context to this, because people are like, oh, Kalybriah shouldn't have like started with him at the party. No, he started the situation, and everybody watched her, basically got dissed by her own fiance. Anyways, they have that tiff, and obviously he tries to apologize and whatever. Episode 11, they're going skateboarding, ice skiing, whatever. They on the motorbikes, whatever. Get up to the cabin, and it seems chill. Come to find out, Kalybriah's like, no, when they were in the car, he basically ignored her existence, basically didn't talk to her at all, cut her off, whatever. So then when the cameras start rolling, when they start getting on the motor skis, whatever, he started trying to like be cool and like, oh, yeah, oh, KB. And she's like, no, because when we were just in the car, you try to play in my face, ignore me the entire ride there, and now it's like, oh, we cool. And she's like, no, because I'm not fake. Like, we had an issue before the camera started rolling, and the issue's still going to continue. She's not going to, just stop having the issue because the camera's rolling, that pretend everything's peachy keen. That's what she's telling Edmund. Edmund trying to play in her face and say, like, oh, nothing went down, nothing happened. Like, I didn't do nothing to you, da-da-da-da. And she's like, no, she's heated, she's upset. And she's basically saying, you keep on cutting me off. And it kind of got real heated because she started telling him off. And I think at the end of it, she called him a B. She's like, okay, keep cutting me off, B. And like, I think at that, like, obviously getting called out of your name, he got up and like left. Because he was just like, oh, I didn't do nothing wrong to you. And I don't feel like I have to apologize to you because because if I have to apologize, like, she's like, no, I don't want for you to apologize for me to hear it. I want you to apologize and actually take accountability. My thing with KB, though, I mean, I guess as she said, they go with KB is social worker, and I think she's saying like Edmund's not her typical type. I think even at the dress fitting, her friends are there, and her friends are like, yeah, he's very unique, he's very different, not her typical type, da da da. I feel like they were just trying to find something nice to say. I think the one friend that was speaking was the spokesperson, because the other one didn't really want to say anything. But they were just basically like, if she likes it, they love it, because essentially they probably weren't messing with Edmund like that either. But anyway, she's trying to basically give it a chance, and like as a social worker, she's probably just trying not to give up on him so easily. I think she said a lot of verbiage that kind of shows why she's still stuck with it, because I'm like, after Cabo, he probably only had one more chance, and I feel like the one more chance would have been him trying to play in her face at the Western party, because after Cabo, it should have been wraps. But if you want to give him another chance, like, you know, a Nick situation, and give like one more chance, I feel like the Western situation should have been the wraps. But anyways, she, you know, came back, episode 11. He actually took accountability, brought home flowers, and actually apologized, and like she really spoke to her and like, you know, took accountability. And she basically says like, you know, she apologizes for like cursing him out, because, you know, I'm really supposed to do that in a, you know, marriage and like, you know, partnership, whatever. And obviously he apologizes as well and things like that, and like, you know, basically tells him that she does appreciate him and stuff like that, and vice versa. You know, basically like, you know, he does help her grow, because, you know, she shouldn't, you know, typically, you know, she has reasons to walk out. Like, she was ready to like throw the ring away and walk out on him, and maybe he would have did the same thing too. I mean, he's basically saying like, oh, she cuts him off. The thing about KB, I feel like the relationship has went past like relationship to, you know, teacher student, mother son type of situation. It's not giving partner, equally yoked people. It's not giving that. And I feel like for KB, I feel like she needs somebody who's equally yoked, or somebody who's gonna be like a partner for her in a sense. And I feel like in every sense is always, she's like kind of like telling Edmund like, you're not doing the right thing, like da da da. And I'm like, granted, he is, you know, really testing her nerves, because it's just like, she literally said he's not the same person off camera. When the camera starts rolling, he changes to a different dude. But, you know, the apologies happened. They started like doing a little rollerblading skating situation, and like, you know, basically his hobby, and like really getting into it, and like she really likes it, da 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 da. But I'm like, KB, I mean, it really should be wraps with that whole you and Edmund situation. No shade, no tea. But I feel like she wants to really fight for the relationship. That's why she's still here. And, you know, he obviously, I mean, I don't think he's going to get up and walk away. No shade, no tea. But I feel like she wants to, like, say, like, she really fought for that. She really put her all into this or whatever. So that's what's going on with their relationship. Now we get to Anton and Alini. Anton and Alini, obviously in episode 10, she basically tried to, like, actually talk to him about his drinking problem in a indirect sense. Basically they had like he had a 12 pack of Coors and like a bottle of tequila, and they're both gone. And she was just like, I only had 2. Like, what happened to the rest? He also mentioned that like he had Patrick up here for some reason. So she was like kind of bothered, because she was like, why was Patrick here? Like, why did you let Patrick up here? I don't know what's beef with that situation, but I mean, granted, you don't want any and everybody in your home, especially that she didn't know about. But he was like, oh, he brought it downstairs, like they met downstairs and they had a drink, whatever. So she tried to bring up the drinking situation, and then also he tried to like bring up like how she doesn't clean, and like she didn't really help around the situation, the house. And like I said, like she really, I mean, granted his drinking situation, like, yeah, you need to address that, but also hopefully she wants to like actually compromise and like, kind of like meet in the middle with the whole, like, you know, if he's gonna do all the financial aspects, I guess, you know, she should try to chip in with either something around the house, not everything, but like at least something around the house, either clean, tidy up somewhere, I don't know, dinner, I don't know. But like, you know, he just like kind of mentioned like, okay, are you gonna like come home every day like this and not clean? And she's like, yeah. So that happened at episode 10. Episode 10, also we actually meet Anton's mom. He actually comes to his fitting, and like obviously they had a good fitting, because, and then also Alina, she brought her mom, so we actually see her mom. It didn't come to until episode 11 that he meets her mom, though, because she met his mom, and like then she, he meets her mom like closer to the wedding day, even though she's been in this town, in the city, like maybe a little bit, earlier than so. Also, Fellini, we find out that like one of her sisters, I think her closest sister that she has, is like not supportive of the whole relationship or whatever. So like she's talking about it with her mom, and she's just like, I know she's really close with you, but you have other sisters to support you. But she's like, it's kind of sad that the sister that you're really closest to doesn't want to support your marriage. So they were having a chat about that situation, and it is what it is, basically, for Fellini. Also, with that being said, Antonellini, I mean, besides the drinking and the cleaning, because I think when he met her mom actually basically talked about the compromise and said like, okay, yeah, she needs to kind of like help and work together with the relationship. And she actually mentioned the cleaning, and he was like, yes, thank you. Like, I really he loved the mom, because he was like, oh, she actually mentioned like the cleaning up, because Olini doesn't do so. So like he was really glad for that, and he was just like, he just like, as long as two people are willing to work together in their like relationship or marriage, then they should be fine. If anybody's like having cold feet, is Olini, to be real and honest. I feel like if anybody's having cold feet in this relationship, is Olini. So we just really have to wait on if she's gonna say yes or no, or she's gonna have a relationship with Anton or whatever. We don't know. Now, last but not least is Megan and Jordan. So Megan, she finally meets Luca, had a little time with him, whatever. They basically didn't have much to really say in episode 10, but episode 11 now, they make their little cowboy hats. I don't know how Denver, Colorado is such like a Midwestern cowboy city town, because I'm like, this is like the third time I'm seeing like cowboy hats. For what? Like, for what? Why are we making cowboy hats? But anyways, they make cowboy hats, and they're like talking. So then she basically just like says like, asking Jordan like, hey, I don't really know much about your job. So like, we need to have a chat. Like, do we just come home and stare at each other? Like, tell me how your day was. Like, what's going on? And he just kind of like, yeah, no. She was like, sometimes you just like, you have like low energy, and like you don't like speak a lot. And like he was asking like, is that a problem? And she's like, no, it's not a problem. But she kind of like want to hear more about him in his day-to-day life. Essentially, like, she just knows like he has a son, he goes to work, and he goes to the gym. Like, that's basically it. Like, she doesn't know much about him personally beyond the surface, and she's just trying to get more out of him. So they get to, I guess, obviously it's 2 days before the wedding, so I guess the apartments, they have to start to move out of the apartments and start like finding somewhere else to live, either go back to their original houses or whatever, or whatnot. So they're starting to like pack up their stuff and like move out of the apartments, because you would think like, oh, another engagement has failed, but like, no. But when that's happening, she's basically kind of annoyed with Jordan about like, okay, I'm tired of you giving these one-word answers, like, let's have a real conversation. And he's like always like, I'm really tired, da. And he's like saying like, okay, I work 10-hour days, I have to talk to people constantly, and it's just like, I just want to come home sometimes and just watch a movie. I don't really want to talk about my job when I get home. And she's kind of like, you know what, like, I understand you're tired, like, I work too, like, but can we just have like a little conversation? So he's just like, yeah. Basically, she was just like, okay, sometimes like I'm always on the go. Like, she goes to, LA, Aspen, goes play golf, tennis, da. So he's like, okay, when you have a kid, are you gonna like do this all the time? And he's like, okay, going to Italy with a 5-year-old is gonna be a lot. I mean, this is where Jordan have to make a compromise. I feel like this is where Jordan is not compromising enough for the relationship with Megan, because yeah, I understand her having kids, but he's like also telling her like, okay, I don't want to have a nanny. Granted, yeah, I don't have a nanny, but like, granted, you are a blended family. So when you want to go on a trip or whatever, you can either ask your parent to watch Luca or have the mother of your child to watch Luca. I don't know. I mean, it's not granted like you have to be everywhere with Luca, because you're not everywhere with Luca now. You wasn't with Luca in Mexico. You wasn't with Luca with the apartment. So like Luca could, still be with his mother while you and Megan are having fun or whatever. Granted, like on things like that, when you want to have, look up part of your vacations, I mean, sure, but I feel like Megan will make sure to accommodate him or have accommodations for him because she has the means for it. But I guess she's trying to say like, she doesn't want to like basically like do a whole, lifestyle change. Like she can understand to like compromise on a little bit of things like in terms of the house or whatever, but not in terms of like, okay, she has to stop golfing or stop traveling or whatever. My thing is she doesn't have kids yet, so she's still gonna travel. Now when she's ready to have kids with Jordan, if and do they get married, then maybe she will start doing those things, but I don't think she's gonna stop doing the traveling because he says so, because that's the thing. She has her own life. She's on the go all the time. Just like he's always at work for 10 hours, she's always on the go because she works hard to do those things. So she's just saying like, she wants to know what he's doing or have like a little chat with him because she's not going to know if they don't have a chat or anything about that. So he kind of clocked her and basically said like, okay, well, the guys that you dated that were in business, they didn't work out. And this is why when you get to the pods, you chose me over them because you wanted something different. So, I mean, that is true because she could have picked Mike. She could have easily picked Mike if she wanted to, but she didn't. She picked him. And he basically clocked her on that. Like, yeah, you did pick him because you want something different than these business guys that didn't work out in your past. So that was episodes 10 through 11. There's only 3 weddings that will be happening. I feel like if anybody's going to say yes, will be Anton and Lainey. And then very closely would be Megan and Jordan. Anybody else? No. KB and Edmund? No. I do not think they're going to say yes. To be clearly honest, I feel like only Anton and Lainey. But then again, Alini is very much a wild card because she probably might say no to Anton. So that's the real kicker here. Jordan and Megan, if they say yes, I wouldn't be surprised. If they say no, I wouldn't be that surprised. But I feel like out of the 3 weddings, those are the potential 2. KB and Edmund, I don't think so. But if they do say yes, that's on KB. That's on KB. But anyway, guys, these were episode 10 and 11. Next, we're going to have the weddings to see what happens. But anyway, guys, if you guys like this video, comment up below, let me know your thoughts, concerns, and subscribe to my channel, subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. Peace.